Hey, I'm going to hope that this works. I'm going to hope this works because honestly, I've never done a live stream on YouTube. And we changed the link this morning, which I know probably threw some people off. But the reason why that we did was because if we would have gone with the first option, we would have really been messing around with the connection. And that's the last thing that I want. So if you are tuning in, please make sure that you say hi. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would absolutely love that as well. Today, we're going to be talking about a super important topic, and that is the topic about fibroids. And I'm going to tell you all about what they are, why we get them, why it's so darn important that you need to listen to this because the prevalence of fibroids is so huge. And if you are a Black female, your chances of getting fibroids actually increases substantially. So nice to meet you, Melissa. You're so funny, even on the serious topics. Aw, thanks so much, Karine. You know, I never do live streams on here, so I figured let's just try this out. I'm also going to be talking about surgical options. That is a question I get so often about fibroids is, like, what do I do for surgery? Should I get a hysterectomy? Should I get a myomectomy? My doctor wants to put me on Lupron. Is that a good option? I'm going to be talking all about this. And I'm also going to be speaking about the spiritual connection behind fibroids. We often don't talk about that. There's so much that we're going to run through in the time that we have together. So hold on tight because it's going down right now. So hey to everybody who's here. Vernicia and hey Mariah, hey girl, and Linda Morena. We've got a bunch of people who are tuning in. So hello to everybody. So just a little background about myself. My name is Melissa Ramos. If you don't know already, I'm a nutritionist with a background in Chinese medicine. I produce all the little funky videos that you see on YouTube about hormones and poop. It's my jam. Although I figured that you probably shouldn't use the word jam and poo in the same sentence. But I'm going to do that anyways. Wow, I watch your videos. I thought you were not a normal person. I am very much a normal person, usually. And I know that I use a lot of humor, but I use humor in my videos because of the fact that I try to break through a lot of taboos about the topics of hormones or just tough to have conversations. And that's the reason why that I use humor often. For some people, it might annoy them. For me, it's just a way for me to be able to educate people. Because frankly, a lot of these topics can be kind of dry and sometimes confusing to understand. So if I can provide it in a way and make you laugh in part of your day, I've won, frankly. To me, I think this whole topic of hormones can be so darn complicating. And it's so challenging for a lot of people to grasp. And it's really hard, especially if you have fibroids, like Vernicia said there that she has a fibroid and she has a cyst. The biggest part is that it's so, and I don't want to say the biggest, but some of the factors behind it, given that I've had a history of fibroids and cysts, is that it's scary. And it's also really hard to understand, well, who do you trust? There's so much information out there and it can be incredibly overwhelming. Hey, Yvonne, thank you so much. Share this video if you guys can. I would super appreciate that. Thank you, Betty Boop and Clara Dennis. Said no to the pill, still have the fibroids. I'm going to talk about that. So thank you for bringing that up, Clara, or Clara. Which is a beautiful name. But make sure you guys share this if you can, because the prevalence of fibroids is so massive. By the time a woman is 50 years old, and this is a white woman, by the time that she's 50 years old, she has a 70%, well, I don't know why I said it that way, but 70% chance of getting fibroids. And if you are a Black woman, you have an 80% chance. It jumps up even further. Why that happens? Gosh, for a variety of reasons. And there's nothing that has been set in stone in terms of why women of color have a higher tendency towards estrogen dominant conditions. Some people will say it's because of some of the hair products that are used. There's also some statistics and really alarming statistics on the disparity between, women go through this in general, but Black women especially. But if you go into the hospital or the doctor, for example, you're likely going to get turned away in many ways. And I don't want to say this to discourage you from seeking medical help, because you should. But labeled as crazy or anxious. Have any of you guys gone through this? Because I've absolutely had the doctor saying like it's kind of all in your head type thing. And women of color absolutely will face an even greater obstacle with that. Women who are overweight will also face a greater stigma as well. So this has been happening medically for a very long time in the Western allopathic community. This isn't to say that Western medicine is bad. There's a lot of great doctors out there. In fact, if it wasn't for the medical community, I absolutely would not have been saved. I had an ovarian cyst that had ruptured. It tore off a piece of my right ovary, and I bled internally, and they took out 2.5, almost 3 liters of blood from me, and that's a lot. And so taking out that much blood from an individual from this ruptured cyst that tore off a piece of my right ovary really did prompt me to delve deeper into the whole topic of hormones. It was a really, really scary experience for me. I had a 6-inch vertical incision that they did. I can show you right there. And they did, I had 24 staples along this line. Some women get that surgery done. It can be a vertical or a horizontal surgical incision. But either way, it can be really traumatic when you're going through these and, you're not being taken seriously. But, obviously the medical community is there. So women, fibroids are very common. Even if you don't have one, this is something that I strongly suggest that you share this broadcast, because it's so prevalent for women to get them. Yes, especially for women older who don't have kids. So I'm going to kind of break this down and let you know some of the probable causes. Now, before we get into that, I want to be able to say one very crucial thing. I'm actually going to say 2 very crucial things that I really want you guys to take away from this broadcast. And the first one is that there is no one root cause. I'm sure many of you guys may have heard this before in the alternative traditional healing space of what's the root cause? What's the root cause? And I hate this so much. And the reason why that I say there's no one root cause is because instead what we should be saying is that there are causative factors. There are causative factors behind any condition. And your fibroids, for example, are a symptom. They are not the root cause. So I often get women who follow me on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can. It's Sexy Food Therapy. Shameless plug. But follow me on Instagram as well, because I'm very active there. Just search Sexy Food Therapy, all one word. But women will tell me their life story and say, I've got fibroids. So what supplement can I take for my fibroids? And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. Fibroids are a symptom. And to be able to really be able to address it, you have to address the causative factors, because there are layers. And in the way that proper healing takes place is to be able to remove those causative factors so we can lessen the load on the body, and the body can begin to feel supported and heal itself. So that is one of the biggest things that I can tell you is there is no root cause. There are causative factors. Incredibly important. Number 2, your fibroids are a symptom. Please understand that. That's the reason why if you've gone into a health food store and you grabbed a supplement bottle, we're going to pretend this candle is a supplement bottle, but you went and you were like, I'm going to take this, supplement, and it's just going to help me with my fibroids. It's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this supplement. And then you take this formula and then nothing happens. And then you go, this natural shit don't work. And the thing is, it's not that this natural shit don't work. It's that you didn't know what the hell you were doing, and you were trying to address the fibroids as though it were the issue. It's the symptom of other causative factors that are in layers. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, please stop me. What these tips help me? I have endometriosis. They definitely will, because we're going to be talking about the estrogen connection, but we're going to go even deeper than that. So trust me, I'm going to keep rolling here. The other thing that I want you to take away, so there's actually 3 things I want you to take away. Number 1, there's no root cause. There are causative factors. Number 2, what you are going through, whether it is fibroids, endo, ovarian cysts, weight, if you're overweight, it's all a symptom. It's all a symptom. And number 3, hormones are superficial. I say this a lot in Sexy Lady Balls. You guys can check out links below. I also have a really great link for a free fibroid guide. So please make sure that if you want to grab that, it's totally free. Just tell us where to send it. But the link is below this video. And you can grab that and we'll send it over to you. Just make sure you check junk. But Sexy Lady Balls, my hormone membership program, I consistently say hormones are superficial in the respect that if you are consistently treating, oh, it's estrogen, fibroids are a high estrogen issue. Oh, this is true. Estrogen is absolutely involved. This is true. And not just estrogen is involved, but there's a progesterone deficiency that comes with that because estrogen and progesterone play this balancing act. So, and we're going to talk about that, but that isn't necessarily what you just need to be addressing. Because if you do, what will happen is you'll go, I feel marginally better, but then it kind of goes back to feeling meh, and it doesn't really work so much. This is the reason why a lot of women will be like, I did all this stuff, but it just didn't work afterwards. So this natural shit don't work. So let's actually kind of tackle some of this. So first and foremost, estrogen. You don't just have one. You have many. You've got these estrogens, estrone, estradiol, and estriol, okay? And then from those, you also have a bunch of estrogen metabolites, which I kind of call like estrogen's children. I try to give metaphors because I find it's easier to remember this complicated shiz, okay? So bear with me. But estrogen isn't all bad. We need estrogen, okay? So some estrogen that's actually protective, protects our heart. Some of that estrogen helps to, it's great for your brain and for your memory. We need estrogen to actually lubricate our vaginas. So that's actually very important. So as we get older, women will say, oh, I have like really painful dry sex. A lot of that is because of estrogen deficiency. With estrogen excess, it's not one estrogen. We have to evaluate what actually is going on, what's actually elevated. In the case of fibroids, it's pretty darn safe to say that there is an estrogen excess that's happening, okay? Now, I will say this. So let's just say estrogen's here and progesterone is here, okay? So progesterone's where my rings are, okay? So if progesterone's a little bit low, and then all of a sudden you add on things like medications or water or the environment or eating in plastics or makeup or all these things that can disrupt your hormones, even aluminum foil, believe it or not, can really actually mimic estrogens in your body. A lot of people don't know that. So you shouldn't be cooking with aluminum foil. That kind of slightly raises it. So now we've got this like case where estrogen is in excess and progesterone's in deficiency state, and that's not good. So we start to see that like when we start to see some estrogens that are not in their healthy range, they begin to become problematic. It signals to the body to grow. And that's when we start to see issues like fibroids, endo, ovarian cysts. And just a side note, you can have fibroids and ovarian cysts. A lot of these issues can definitely overlap. So that's why I said, if you haven't done so, share this live. Estrogen-related issues also have thyroid dysfunction. Now, you might be like, oh, I don't have thyroid issues at all. At all. My doctor said it was normal. How many of you guys listening in actually have been told that? But the problem is, one, doctors are not doing proper thyroid tests, and I'll do a whole live stream on thyroid, but they're not doing proper thyroid tests. They're testing for maybe 1 or 2 markers, which is not enough to diagnose a thyroid condition. But where estrogen actually plays a role in that is you have this inactive thyroid hormone called T4. Then you have this active thyroid hormone called T3. So what ends up happening here is if there's too much estrogen, it blocks the conversion of that inactive thyroid hormone T4 to convert into the active thyroid hormone T3. Estrogen blocks that conversion. So that's when we start to see women who've got hypothyroidism that will be, together with these estrogen-related issues. So estrogen absolutely plays a massive role with fibroids. But this is where, remember I said to you before, there are 3 things I want you to take away from this live stream. What was the first one? The first one was your fibroids are a symptom, okay? Your issues, weight, ovarian cysts, endo, whatever the F, it's a symptom, okay? The other thing I said, there is not one root cause. There are causative factors. And the third thing I said is hormones are superficial. These are 3 things I need you to remember, okay? I'm going to drill this in. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep repeating it, especially since some people are rolling in a bit late. So when I say hormones are superficial, I'm saying it in this context because if you just address, oh, I have an estrogen dominant condition, so therefore I have to address this because I have estrogen dominance. This is where I look at you and go, you know, the estrogen dominance you have, it's a symptom. And people might go, what? What do you mean it's a symptom? It's a symptom. And I go, but of what? What do you mean? I don't get it. I'm going to explain that. And yes, Marcy, and I hope I'm saying that your name right, I did say that aluminum foil, do not cook with it. You can use aluminum foil to wrap certain things, but when aluminum foil is actually heated, it releases aluminum. It becomes soluble and it releases it into the food. And aluminum is one of those heavy metals that actually, along with cadmium is another one, but aluminum actually does disrupt our hormones and can act a lot like an estrogen mimicker. So more reason to stay away from aluminum. So you can use something like parchment paper would be a great option. A lot of people didn't know, Marcy. I didn't know this either. And I grew up using and having, my mom would always broil vegetables on aluminum foil. So you're cooking all this really healthy food and that's contributing to it. So that's just one of the many examples of how your estrogen can get disrupted. So see, I was saying, hormones are very superficial because if your estrogen, if so many things can affect your sex hormones, and when I say hormones are very superficial, what I'm trying to tell you is that so many things can affect your hormones. That's all I'm saying about it. That's all that I mean by it. And that's a classic example. So if you're eating out of plastics, that can affect your estrogen. So you can take all the supplements you want, but if you haven't cleared away some of the things that are contributing to the estrogen dominance, it's not going to matter. So stop treating the hormone and start treating the things that are actually impacting the hormones. So aluminum foil is definitely a part of that picture. The other thing that's really a huge part, obviously, if you've been on birth control. Now, if you were like, hey, I was on birth control, but God, it was when I was in university, like, oh, so long time ago. I'll tell you this right now. It still is likely affecting you now. So I know these are going to be some really big kind of moments. The birth control pill is laced with copper, okay? Here's another really startling fact about, don't feel overwhelmed, Marcy. This is what I said even off the top. I know it can feel overwhelming. Digest what you can. Not everything is bad. Use this information as power. That's what it's there for, okay? And if you got to watch this back on the replay, watch it back, take some notes, and you'll be okay. You'll be okay. So copper is laced in the birth control pill in a really big way. Now think about it. When you have fibroids, you're like, oh, I got fibroids. Go to the doctor. The doctor goes, here's this pill. And I make fun of the fact that the birth control pill is given as commonly as, say, like someone's having a Tic Tac. You know, it's just given so frequently. And the problem is that the pill is laced with copper. Now, why should you really give a shit about copper? Well, you should really care because copper, especially if there's an estrogen dominance issue. Sorry, I have like a really random hair that's not attached to my skin, but just floating. Got you. Okay, back to our scheduled programming. If you have this pill and it's laced with copper, copper actually ends up really increasing the amount of estrogen that's there. They play this really shitty balancing act together. So here's a case I'm going to tell you about. So I had a woman who I saw in practice, and we did a hormone test with her, and her estrogen levels, like all of them were in the red. Like we're talking not just her estrogens above, but her estrogen metabolites, they were all in the red. They were very elevated. And we did, trying to this is like long time ago when I was like, hormones, got to like lower those hormones. And again, I was trying to address the hormones. But what did I say was one of the things I wanted you to take away? Hormones are superficial. So many things affect them. So as we're sitting here addressing her high estrogen, like trying to lower it with supplements, she comes back, she does the test again. They're still all in the red. And we're like, what the fuck? And then I realized to myself that something is affecting it. And we have a lot of when people join Sexy Lady Balls, our hormone membership program, it's like $57 a month. It's really cheap. And we make it cheap because you get all these resources and all this education. So Marcy, you're like, I'm overwhelmed, but we give you so much information, but it gets dripped out to you. So it's easy to consume. But we offer testing as upgrades, right? And that's why we keep the price of the monthly membership low. But the testing are upgrades. And one of the testings that we do is called HTMA, and it's hair trace mineral analysis. When we ended up testing her hair, we noticed her copper levels were through the roof. Answer was right there. And I'm not saying that was the root cause, because what was the other thing that I told you guys off the top of this? There is no root cause. There are causative factors. This was also a woman who was very constipated. Estrogen, one of the ways that estrogen gets eliminated is through your bowels. So if you're not dropping the kids off in the pool on a daily basis, you should be dropping the kids off at the pool, meaning you're pooping 1 to 2 times a day. What do you think your stool is carrying? It's carrying estrogen, it's carrying toxins, and guess what's attached to your large intestine? A bunch of blood vessels. So it's going to go and it's going to get reabsorbed. Not good. So if you're somebody that is, holding in your poop because you don't want somebody at the office to know that, God forbid, you're pooping, so you go to a completely different floor, you got to poop. Okay, make sure you're pooping on a daily. I do believe that hair is a much better indicator because blood is homeostatic. So blood is always going to try to regulate things as much as humanly possible. So it's not going to give us the true indication. Hair is going to be a much better indicator, mop, than blood. So we use hair as our gold standard. And the crazy thing is that when we offer hair trace mineral analysis as an upgrade, and you can upgrade at any time, it doesn't matter, but it's like literally one of the first things that we tell people to do if they want to like really take charge of their hormones. We say, get blood work done. Here's a listing of all the blood work we suggest. Get hair trace mineral analysis if you want to upgrade. I do really feel that it's important because copper, I don't know about where you guys live, but copper, especially, I know that a lot of homes have copper piping. And now people are walking around with copper water bottles. And I'm like, this shit's affecting your estrogen levels. We don't need more copper in our world. We see so much of it. And what follows copper often is mercury. Mercury amalgams. If you have mercury amalgams, you should really look into getting those removed. They take them out slowly, because if they take them out altogether, it can be very harmful because a lot of toxins are released during that process. You absolutely can do a liver cleanse. And listen, one of the things that we highly recommend through our membership, and you're welcome, B-Mop, one of the things we always do when we're working with people, I have a team of practitioners who see people when they're upgrading to testing, is that we always support the liver. Always support the liver through the process. But again, there's not one root cause. There are causative factors, and mineral balance and metals are definitely one. But that will absolutely affect people. Now, the next question I normally get is, well, how do I eliminate this copper then? What do I do? How do I eliminate it? Well, before I get to that, I will also give you another very startling fact about the birth control pill. So let's just say if you've never been on the birth control pill ever, but your mama was on the birth control pill. Okay, and she was on the birth control pill before even having you. So she will end up having copper toxicity, guaranteed. Then she gets pregnant with you. That copper toxicity passes within utero. It passes in utero. So you can get copper toxicity just for the sheer fact that your mother was on the birth control pill. So this is kind of crazy pants. The other things to consider also, so we talked a little bit about estrogen. Now we look at progesterone. Now I always have women who say I got to lower my estrogen. I got to boost my progesterone. How do I do that? And I'm always like, Hormones are superficial. I've said this a million times so far in this broadcast, but stop trying to address the hormones and try to address what's causing them to be out of whack to begin with, because their imbalance on its onto its own are symptoms of something greater happening. So progesterone. Now, I'm not saying that natural bioidentical progesterone won't be helpful, because it absolutely will. Natural bioidentical progesterone can be, if you have a functional medical doctor, if you have a naturopath who deals with them. We actually do have a referral for it, only if you are in Canada. We don't have a contact in the US. There are a couple of things that need to happen, but again, this is not a magic bullet. Just because you're taking natural progesterone cream does not necessarily mean that poof, your fibroids are gone. It doesn't work that way. What it'll help to do is it'll help to support you through that process, and it can absolutely help. Because when you have this progesterone deficiency and a subsequent estrogen that's a little bit on the higher end, that's when you see, okay, it's going to grow. And this is when fibroids can grow. This is when heavy bleeding can occur, because that happens obviously with fibroids. If you have fibroids, guys, you know this. So all these things can absolutely happen. So having supporting the progesterone from natural bioidentical hormone therapy. And I keep stressing natural, because if you go to your doctor and they're like, yes, this is bioidentical progesterone, be very careful from a medical doctor, only because oftentimes they'll give you something called progestin. And they'll say, it's progesterone. No, it's not. It's synthetic bioidentical hormone therapy. And progestin, there was a very large study that was done in Denmark from 1.8 million women, where they showed that these women had a greater chance of getting breast cancer from actually taking these the synthetic form of progesterone. And synthetic forms of progesterone are found not only in this progestin tablet that is a pill that's given to women who have fibroids, endo sometimes, ovarian cysts, adenomyosis, but it's also given to women in perimenopausal formulas, in various birth control pills. You'll see it. It's in the Mirena IUD. These are all things that will see progestin, the synthetic form of progesterone, in, but it's seen almost as a ubiquitous form of progesterone, but it's not. It's not the same thing. It's a synthetic form. So that is something that is really, really, really big. So again, Corrine, I don't want you to be going, oh my God, tell me where I can get this progesterone. It's one of the things I told you guys to remember off the top. There's no silver bullet, okay? So progesterone, natural bioidentical progesterone, which is what I mentioned, is better than the synthetic form. You have to get it prescribed. This is not something you're like, I'm gonna go on Amazon and see if I can find it. No, this shit has to be prescribed, and the dose has to be prescribed by an actual functional medical doctor, is someone who absolutely can do it, or a private nurse practitioner. And when we work in Sexy Lady Balls, my hormone membership program, link is down below. If you guys want to check it out, all the information is there. We can actually do referrals for nurse practitioners for people in Canada, but believe it or not, the majority of people who are in that membership are Americans. We have a very high amount of Americans in that program because the program's online. So the thing, though, is a lot of women, again, because they're treating hormones like the hormones are the root cause. Remember, hormones are superficial. A lot of things affect your hormones. I'm talking like this, but when we think of it from that context. You want to know one of the things when I see women who are like smacking on progesterone cream or taking the progesterone, natural bioidentical progesterone pill, and then they get their progesterone levels tested and they go, what the heck? It hasn't actually gone up. Why am I still progesterone deficient? I've been taking this stuff for a while. And it can actually take between 3 to 6 months for you to notice some changes. Your cycle can actually go out of whack initially. You can feel bloated initially with it. But it takes time. Hormones take time. You guys can't expect shit like this because it didn't take you a fucking day to get there. Okay, so we have to be really realistic with ourselves as well when it comes to hormonal healing. And the cure for the pain is in the pain. And I know that, so I'm like trying not throwing you guys all these like Instagram quotes here, but I want you to be very realistic. One of the things that can actually munch away on progesterone, especially if it's not elevating, guess what it is stress. So if any of y'all are stressed, comment below and let me know. How stressed are you? If you're even stressed, I mean, like, you can give me a like on YouTube here, or just write it down below. But so many people, women especially, that I know are so stressed because we're givers. And chronic stress releases this hormone called, well, stress just in general, releases a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is actually not a bad thing. It helps you to like get the heck out of Dodge, right? But the problem is with the society that we live in, see, look, it's stressed AF. When we see, people who are just so massively stressed out, women suck at creating boundaries. Y'all know you do. Y'all are staying up late, okay? Many of you guys are staying up super late. Either watching Netflix or looking at somebody on Instagram or watching YouTube videos, maybe mine, but you're doing this until late at night. And you might be like, but I go to bed at midnight and I'm still getting like my 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I'm like, woman, you got to be going to bed way earlier than that. Like, by the time that I'm done this live stream, Mama's going to be shutting down, the lights dim down low, and I'm going to prepare myself for bed, but I get off all electronic devices. Because if you're not getting enough sleep, that's going to increase your stress. And stress, that, remember I said to you, it increases this hormone called cortisol. When cortisol, the hormone released in response to stress, when it is elevated for a period of time, boundaries are only hard because you make it hard. And I'm going to give you guys some tough love on that shit. I'm totally going to call you guys out for and I'm going to give you tough love. It's out of love, but I'm giving you tough love. So when cortisol is really elevated, you know what happens? Especially chronically, it munches away at progesterone like Pac-Man. So you're never gonna get your progesterone levels up if you are stressed AF. Okay? So every single time I hear women going, it's so hard though. It's hard to say no. It's hard with boundaries. It's only hard because you make it fucking hard. I'm just going to call it what it is. And I'm going to say this because I was like queen of being victim and queen of being the martyr. I do everything for everybody. No one does anything for me. That shit is impacting your hormones. So you can take all of the estrogen supplements you want and trying to address it like they're the silver bullets. That shit's not going to work. And that's when you go, this natural shit don't work. But you're not taking responsibility for yourself. It's not self-care, it's self-parenting. And the faster that you get that through your head, everybody, the more you're going to realize that before you set boundaries on anything that you do, you need to first take a hard look at everything you're resentful for and ask yourself one very important question. What role did I play in this resentment? What role did I play in this resentment? Do you know how many times I hear people say to me, oh, I gave and I gave and I gave to this person, and you know what they did? They kicked me in the ass. That's what happened. I gave and I gave and I gave and I gave, and this person just kicked me in the butt. And the second that I heard that, I go, let's be straight up honest here. Straight up honest. Didn't you give? Didn't you give to this person knowing full well that they would end up taking advantage of you? Didn't you know that deep down? Because you've probably been there before. I've done that even with family. Where to certain family members, I gave and I gave and I gave. And then afterwards, I'm like, I have everything. They don't appreciate me. They don't care. And then I'm like, but you know what? Where am I accountable for this shit? Like, seriously, take a hard look at yourself. Because if you start setting boundaries without taking accountability, guess what? They are fake boundaries. That's why they're so effing hard. Because you need to take accountability for your life. Because before you do, spiritually, all this shit that's happening with your fibroids, your cysts, your endo, guess where it originates from? Where is it in? Your creative center. Spiritually, that whole area. And if you think this is a bunch of woo-woo, I will tell you right now, this is the area of creation. Now you might be like, babies? No, I don't have babies. I have a dog. I'm good with my dog, but I can still create. But I can't create. And this doesn't mean you got to be an artist. This means that you can birth whatever it is you want into the world. And whether that is something birthing as small as, you know what? I'm taking care of myself. I am going to birth the expression of myself, of me, of Natalie, of Trella, of Trini, of Betty Boop, of Clara Dennis, of all the women watching this. I'm going to birth the most authentic fucking version of myself. But you can't do that if you are acting like a fucking victim and a martyr, giving to everybody in the world and then blaming the whole world and then go, I'm going to set boundaries. Oh, don't you get all self-entitled. You need to take accountability for your shit first. Because the moment that you do, then you can go, oh, I gave when I knew I wasn't probably going to get back because I've done this shit before. Like, this is deja poop, right? Like, I know this shit. I've been in this shit before, right? And the moment that you do set those boundaries, you create space. And you're able to say no. And you're able to birth a part of that from you. But the women that I have seen, and I've seen all walks of life that have fibroids, you can eat all the good foods you want. You can take all the supplements you want. But if you don't get enough sleep and you're not taking care of yourself by taking accountability and setting boundaries and saying no, those fibroids aren't going anywhere. From a dietary perspective, I will say this. Gluten, dairy, sugar, take them out. 1,000% because they create dampness. A lot of people will say, oh my God, meat's the devil. It is not the devil. So I consider myself someone who eats a plant-based diet. I still eat meat. Just because you say I eat a plant-based diet doesn't mean you're vegetarian. My diet is plant-based, but I eat meat and it's on my plate as a condiment, meaning it's a small portion of my plate. And from a carbohydrate perspective, it's the carbohydrates that really fuck with your estrogens. And I'll tell you why. And I'm not saying all carbs are bad, because that's not what I'm saying. So don't pull that out of this, okay? Listen to me. If you are literally saying, Melissa, I went gluten-free, but if you were eating herds of gluten, let's just say Talia, and I'm not saying you were, but let's just say Talia, you were eating lots of gluten, okay? Because this is somebody who just commented here. I'm eating loads of, I'm going to pretend you were eating loads of gluten. Ate tons of gluten. Then from that, the second that you end up going from a high gluten-filled diet, and then you go into a gluten-free, but you're still eating the same amount of carbohydrates as you were before, which maybe that was predominant in your diet, you're still going from one high carbohydrate, one starchy diet to the next. And the problem with that is if you end up having high levels of carbohydrates in your diet, insulin, which is the hormone that tells your body to store fat, becomes released. And over time, that insulin is pumping and pumping and pumping. What happens is insulin resistance begins to be created, okay? But insulin, lots of insulin is being pumped out. It decreases it decreases a protein called sex hormone binding globulin. It's a really big name. They should have probably called it Bob, but it decreases this protein. The role of this protein, all you need to know about this protein, is to bind to estrogen, to bind to testosterone so that you can eliminate it. But when you have loads of carbohydrates in your diet, that protein decreases and your body doesn't have this capability to bind to estrogen so that you could remove it. So when people say, meat's the devil, it is not the devil. You absolutely can vote with your dollar on the right ways, on the right sources of meat. And this isn't to offend anybody here, whether you are a vegetarian or you're a vegan. We have vegetarians in our group and we do have vegans in our group because we have recipes for both. But my job is to tell people, to give people education around this subject. And also, this is a judgment-free zone. So the moment that someone starts to like hit me hard and give me death threats because I eat meat, you're off my page. I don't give a shit, because it's just not constructive. And it's also totally ironic too. Because I had a death threat from a vegan on Instagram, and I'm like, you find this a little bit ironic? So from a meat perspective, because you don't want to be eating hormone-laden meats, you can be having organic or grass-fed meats as well. So Marcy, if you had a high gluten-filled diet that was like loads of starchy foods, and you went from that, and then all of a sudden you went from a high carbohydrate gluten-free diet, you're still eating the same amount of carbs. So that's what I'm saying is make vegetables the star of your plate, okay? We have a really good question from Trella who says, do you iodine supplement? I love this question because iodine is actually incredibly important. With that said, please understand the following. I do not want, under any circumstance, for any of you guys to run out and start taking iodine. The reason why is because if your body is not properly supported prior to taking the iodine, and your minerals aren't balanced prior to taking the iodine, you could actually mess up your thyroid gland. Be very careful. So when we work with women, if women decide they want to upgrade in Sexy Lady Balls, my hormone membership program, and they want to upgrade to do HTMA, that's where we actually work with women to safely introduce iodine. And when iodine is safely introduced, because it is insanely amazing for helping women with fibroids and ovarian cysts. And the reason why is because it actually helps to detoxify an estrogen metabolite called 16-OHE1. It's very effective for it. And a huge amount of women, especially if you live around the Great Lakes, which is called the goiter belt, are highly deficient in iodine, myself included. So that's a really, really big thing to understand. But please, I had somebody on my YouTube channel said, I took iodine, it made me feel worse. And I go, did you listen to my video? I said, do not take iodine under any circumstance unless you're working with a qualified practitioner. The reason why is because when you take iodine, in addition to it, if you don't do it properly, by balancing your mineral status, because you got to make the body strong. Why? Because iodine is detoxifying. It detoxes bromine, which is in all baked goods, by the way, and it's a toxic halide. It detoxifies copper. Hello. So these are great things to do, but you can't do it without balancing your minerals. Have you ever saw someone, like a friend of yours, and that person was crazy, upset, really upset, and they were in a very fragile state? You had something that you had to tell them, but you're like, I can't tell them because they can't handle it right now. That's what happens with your body. If you haven't balanced the minerals, you can't force the body to detox heavy metals, like in chelation therapy, for example. Because if you force the body to pump out heavy metals like copper and bromine and uranium and aluminum and mercury, you'll get sick. So when we evaluate someone's hair trace mineral analysis, we boost up, we evaluate, I should say, calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. That's what we do. We want to see where are those 4 base minerals at, because we want to boost them up as much as humanly possible. I know Vegan Heart, you posted this before, but it says, FYI, synthetic thyroid meds and desiccated thyroid meds cause insulin resistance. It's in the literature that comes with the prescription. You must read those. Okay, but here's the thing. It's not necessarily, there's a lot of studies are very much flawed by way of context, okay? So this is the thing that I find very difficult, because people will take a study and go, this is really bad. I will tell you this, as someone who had thyroid nodules, because I had 3 thyroid nodules and 1 cyst, and I do have Hashimoto's, I took desiccated thyroid hormones on a very, very low dose, and it literally made me feel like the lights turned on. And it helped me substantially. To say that it gives you insulin resistance, there's a lot more to that I'm not going to get into on this live stream because we're not talking about the thyroid. But I will say this because we were talking about iodine. If you are on any thyroid meds or desiccated thyroid hormone, it increases the need for iodine because it increases your metabolism, including your metabolism of iodine. So it is another reason why women need iodine, but you cannot go on it without seeing a qualified practitioner, please, or you could harm yourself. I've said that like 5 times now. The last thing that I want to say in regards to that, because I know somebody asked a great question, which was, how about from food? Fab Delka says, what about getting iodine from food? Great question. I would say to you, yes, as Liz just said here, she says Irish moss and bladderwrack is good for, so kelp. You can get kelp in capsule forms, Nature's Way, cheap and cheerful. Oceans Alive is a great supplement, but I say supplement loosely because it's a whole food supplement. You can get Oceans Alive on Amazon. Neither of these companies pay me to say this, just so you know. But Oceans Alive, you can get it on Amazon for like 30-ish bucks or so. I take it. Just a side note, you would take about 12 drops of the stuff. Tastes like you're drinking from the bottom of a fucking ocean, but put it in a shot glass and a bit of water and put it in there. Oceans Alive is way better than Irish Moss and Bladderwrack, Liz. Way better. Like if I were to recommend like a mineral supplement that has naturally occurring iodine that is like a safe thing to take, I would suggest that all of you guys should get Oceans Alive. And again, they don't pay me. I have no affiliation to them. I'm just telling you this because this is the one thing we tell people in Sexy Lady Balls. And I want to give you guys some info. Again, remember, I have that free fibroid guide, guys. It's literally in the many links below, but it's the first link. So click on that. Tell us where to send it. It's completely free, and there's even more tools, especially if you guys loved some of this info. But Oceans Alive, you take 12 drops, and they're gloopy. So you might be like, is this shit like okay? It's totally okay. Shake the bottle, put the drops in. You'll probably have to do it twice because I can get like 6 drops from one. It's a little gloopy and it tastes pretty gross. I will look into Oceans Alive because I already take Irish Moss and Bladderwrack. Thank you so much. Of course, my pleasure. So those are some of the big things that are huge around this. And believe it or not, iodine deficiency is actually even higher in vegans and vegetarians. So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, I even stress this even more so. So these are some of the things. So we spoke. Remember off the top, I said to you, number 1, remember that fibroids, ovarian cysts, weight gain, ovarian endo, they're all a symptom. Okay, so it's important to understand that hormones are superficial. A lot of things affect your hormones. So just treating that I have high estrogen, I need to lower it. What supplement lowers estrogen? What supplement increases progesterone? You got to address what's actually creating them to be out of whack. And we talked about how stress consumes your progesterone. So you got to take care of yourself, empower yourself, and take charge of your fucking life and start taking accountability, then set boundaries. The last thing that I want to be able to mention to you guys, because we have just a little bit of time left, and I know this is a lot of information, and if you guys love this, make sure to give me a thumbs up here and let me know if you want me to continue doing live streams on YouTube, because I'm more than happy to do it. The last thing that I want to mention to you in regards to fibroids is surgery. A lot of women go, should I get surgery for my fibroids? My doctor said I should go for a hysterectomy. I think hysterectomy should be your last option. But for some women, where their fibroids have gone so out of control and they're so large, sometimes getting surgery is important. And so that's one of the things that I say to people is that, like, your fibroids are, some people do need to get a hysterectomy, but I think that it should be your last option. Okay, so that's something that I will say to you. Myomectomies are generally for ovarian cysts that are about 6 centimeters and smaller. And the reason why is because in a myomectomy, they try to keep everything intact, all the reproductive content, and they're trying to take out the fibroid that is 6 centimeters or smaller through laparoscopic incision. Okay, so it's like those 2 long prongs, and they do 2 tiny little slits and in and out surgery. Didn't work. See, this is the thing. The fibroids, have to be small enough. Sometimes your doctor will suggest you going on Lupron because Lupron, which is a gonadotropin releasing antagonist. I know that's a really big word. Again, they should have just called it Bob. But what ends up happening here is that the idea, their thought process is if we use Lupron, we can medically induce menopause, get that estrogen levels down so the fibroid stops growing. And if we can get it small enough, it'll be small enough that we can take it out through a myomectomy, through a laparoscopic incision. This isn't, it doesn't, this is the thing that women have to understand, is women will say, I'm going to get a laparoscopic incision or I'll get an ablation. Whatever the thing is, understand this, is that if you end up, I had a myomectomy for a 12 centimeter fibroid. Wow, that's fantastic. Because normally they're supposed to be for something much smaller. Did you end up getting it, unless things have changed? From my understanding, it was always 6 centimeters or smaller. Did they end up putting you on any Lupron, would be my other question, Louise, as well. So the other thing that I want you to understand is that even if you get a myomectomy, your fibroid could very well grow back. Even if you were given Lupron, no Lupron, that's fantastic. But even if you get a myomectomy, it doesn't cure it. Your fibroid could grow back. Okay, so I just want to let you know that your fibroid could grow back. Sometimes it's good to kind of get a myomectomy if the fibroid has become super problematic because you're bleeding constantly. I'm not anti-surgery by any stretch. I think that it really depends on the case. Also, every fibroid is very different. So not every woman who has fibroid should get this surgery, you know? So what I say to people is that you have to still address the causative factors. Remember, there is not one root cause. There are causative factors. We have to look at the bowels. We have to make sure the liver is working great. We have to look at the mineral balance, see if there's heavy metals that are associated there. We have to look at the stress levels. There's so much. And Louise says, yes, she's correct. They do grow back. Mine didn't, had an MRI to confirm. That's fantastic. And the thing to understand is for some women, when they don't grow back, oftentimes it's because they're pretty close. And I'm not saying that this is you, Louise, but for some women, they're really close to menopause. So their estrogen levels are already naturally declining because your estrogen levels do decline as you age. Women will find sometimes that they get relief postmenopausal because their estrogen levels are so low, their fibroids regress. So if you end up getting a myomectomy just prior to having like maybe about, I don't know, 2 to 5 years before menopause, you might find that they won't grow back. But again, a lot of the causative factors, remember, because there's not one root cause, absolutely can still be there and they still need to be addressed. Menopause doesn't just fix your hormones just because all of a sudden I don't have a period anymore. Yay. It doesn't just work that way. And that is a really big thing to be able to understand. I'm just going to scroll up really quickly. Thank you for saying you love my content, Ophira. Great to see you here. Talia says, I would love to work with you one-on-one to resolve and get to the root cause. There is no root cause. Remember from the beginning, one of the rules I taught you guys, there is no one root cause. There are causative factors. We have to change this lingo. Is urgent and I have very low ferritin. I'm being told I need surgery to resolve. Let me know how to get. So what you can do is you can look down at the comments, Talia, and you can check out my website. And then there's you'll see how to work with me. So ways to work with me specifically. You can apply to work with me, which at this point I'm not taking any patients until next year. Or you can join Sexy Lady Balls. I'm literally in there every day. And you can upgrade to testing like the hair trace mineral analysis testing that I spoke about heavily in this broadcast. And then you would be connected with one of my highly skilled functional practitioners that are amazing. Yes to more live streams. Yay, I'm glad. My first live, thanks so much. I really enjoyed. We'll try to attend more tricky over here in Australia. Oh my God. I don't even know what time it is in Australia. I'm late to this talk, but muito obrigada. De nada. I'm hoping you're going to make this available to watch again. Yes. So this is going to be available on my YouTube channel and praying I'll not need surgery to get some help here. There's always help. Fab says in 2003, I found out I had 2 fibroids, walnut size, about a month ago. Found out I had 4, none bigger than a grape, and 1 cyst. Does this mean they'll shrink, or should I ask? Again, it's hard to say without seeing the entire, the whole case. I can't say to you guys, yes, your fibroid specifically is going to shrink. I think that if you go about addressing the causative factors, because remember, there's not one root cause, and stop, guys, stop looking at your fibroids going, I need to address this fibroid because this is the problem. The fibroid is a symptom. The excess, if you keep trying to address the hormones, you're not going to get very far. You got to address why the hormones are out of whack to begin with, because the hormonal balance is even a symptom unto itself. So this is a really, really big part of that. Even, like I said, your gut functions as a second hormonal system. So if your gut is completely out of whack, your hormones are going to be out of whack. So a lot of things affect your hormones. So that's why we try to peel away these causative factors, and the body begins to heal. Yes, gata. Oh, I love when Brazilians are here. I'm headed, just a side note, I'm half Brazilian. I'm headed to Colombia for the winter. No more cold winters. Can I get the supplement sent to me there? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, guys, that is pretty much it for this broadcast for this evening. I hope that you enjoyed it. I literally shot out so much information in 56 minutes. It is absolutely nuts. I am so happy that you guys dug this. The response was better than I expected. And I'm just so grateful and blessed that you guys came here. Please make sure that if you have not done so, click the link below that has the link for my free fibroid guide. If you loved all the info here, click the link. Tell us where to send that guide. It's an online guide. Check your spam or your junk mail. Okay, make sure you check that. Grab that. And once you grab that, I will be sending you some more info, all free, valuable info about your fibroids. Some of it will recap some of the stuff that I said here that I think that you will absolutely adore. There's so much that I've put that is like free shit. And who doesn't like free shit? So go get that free fibroid 411 guide. It's the first link in the description below. And also just click show more. And when you do, you will see a bunch of other links. You will see links for my website, how to find me on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram is like one of my favorite other than YouTube, but I'm on Instagram as well. So come say hi to me on Instagram and say hello, because I post there, and I love it. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And have yourselves a beautiful evening. All right, bye.